I used to live with my dad in Georgia in a somewhat isolated area. For reference, I'm a female, and I was 13 at the time. My dad owned 5 acres of land, and a bunch of our relatives lived on the same property. There was a long driveway that branched off into separate mud and gravel driveways. Normally during the weeknights, I would finish my homework and then decide if I wanted to listen to my stereo or watch some paranormal shows. On the night in question, I would say it was around 9 p.m. I was getting settled down for the night when suddenly, out of nowhere, there came a tap on my bedroom window. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor, and there were no trees near my window for someone to climb up. Most of my family were away at the time, so right away I was a bit freaked out. There was a large TV stand in front of the window, which obscured my view. I went downstairs and searched through the kitchen and the living room to see if anyone was outside. My dad usually worked late nights, so I was unfortunately home alone at the time. I thought maybe my dad had forgotten his house keys, and I started walking towards the front door to check if he was there. I couldn't see his car in the driveway, since he usually parks by the front door window. Directly behind the living room is a sliding glass door with long blinds. The light on the back porch was on, and I could see a silhouette of someone standing on my back porch. Panic took over. I knew that it wasn't my father, and I didn't know if the door was locked. If I just stood there, I would give the intruder the chance to enter the house, so I bolted to the door to make sure it was locked. I stuck my hands through the blinds, too afraid to look outside. Thankfully, it was locked. I then ran to the kitchen and grabbed a huge knife to protect myself, and then went back upstairs into my bedroom. Right as I turned my light off, there came a loud bang outside my window. I hid in my closet and called my dad to let him know what was going on. He confirmed that no one should be at the house and said that he was heading over right away before he hung up. I called the cops, and the dispatch informed me that the nearest unit was about 25 minutes away. I waited in the closet with a knife ready to strike at whoever entered my room. The banging noises continued, and they sounded as if they were coming from every direction, almost as if there was more than one lunatic outside trying to get in. My dad and the police got there at the same time, but by then, the assailants were gone. The officers conducted a quick search of the property before taking my statement. My dad told me afterward that they saw multiple sets of footprints in the mud going all the way around the house. I'm not sure what was scarier, seeing the figure on the back porch, or knowing that there was multiple people there. Nothing ever came of it, and to this day, I still have no clue why they were there. This happened to me when I was going to school in Los Angeles during the spring of 2012. I grew up in Indiana in a very safe community, so it took a while for me to adjust to the craziness and crime in the city. I was living in an apartment with 4 other women at my college. Our place was above a house, so to access it you had to go down a long alleyway next to the house and up some stairs, so it was pretty out of the way. On this particular day, I stopped by the apartment to grab some music before a choir practice, so I came inside and started gathering my materials on the kitchen table. I didn't bother locking the door since I would only be there for a few minutes. There was a knock on the screen door, and when I looked up, there was a man standing on the doorstep. He was a young Hispanic male, medium height, and wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Hello? I called out to him, thinking that he was delivering a package or something. The man doesn't say a word and reaches down and opens the screen door. He then begins to walk towards me. Still at this point, I was not alarmed, starting to say something about him leaving the package on the table, when I noticed he didn't have one. The only thing in his hand was a box cutter. By the time I realized this, He was too close for me to escape, and he put the blade against my neck. He then told me to get up and walk into my roommate's bedroom next to the kitchen. He locks the door and pushes me onto the bed. My mind is racing the whole time, telling myself that he probably just wants to rob me and that I will let him take whatever he wants. As I'm sitting on the bed, he starts looking around the room. He then grabs some telephone cables next to the bed and begins trying to tie my wrists together. It wasn't working too well, but he kept trying. I eventually snapped out of my trance, realizing that this situation could become even more dangerous if he binds me. I screamed and started pushing him. I made a break for the door. He caught me and tried again to tie my hands together, but I was thrashing and screaming and kept hitting him in his head. After a few seconds of this, he decides to bail and runs out of the apartment. I followed him, screaming for help. One of my neighbors who lived in the house under our apartment came out within seconds and saw the guy running down the alley and chased him into the street. We called the cops, and they came right away. I ended up going down to the station, where I worked with a police sketch artist on a composite that ended up being posted on the television. They caught the guy within a week. The police officer who responded to the scene said that there was a local gang that required new members to cut off the nipples of women and bring them back as an offering. Ever since this experience, I always tell people to lock their doors, even if they're just stopping by to grab a few things. You're better off safe than sorry. In 1987, I was 12 years old. I grew up in a third world country in Africa. I remember that outside of my village, there were these massive rock formations that me and my friends would often play in. One of our favorite games was hide and seek. One day all the children got together and planned on having the biggest hide and seek game we had ever played. Myself and two others were selected as the seekers, and we would count to 50 in an alley behind the marketplace and then look for the hiders in the rocks. After about 15 minutes of searching, we didn't find anyone. We were confused because it was an unspoken rule that you could only hide in the rock formations. So we decided to look through the marketplace and the rest of the village. Still, nothing. When one of us noticed something in the distance. For some context, beyond the cluster of rocks was a desert that expanded for miles. There were these unmoving figures on the horizon. The best way to describe them is that they looked like scarecrows. Small scarecrows hoisted onto pikes sticking out of the ground. We ran back to our village screaming. Everything else is a blur to me. I only remember certain parts. Chaos broke out in the village. Our huts were burned to the ground, and my father threw me onto a truck before he was gunned down in front of me. Nearly everyone I knew died that day. My name is Samuel O'Brien, and I am originally from Somalia. What happened to my people is often referred to as the Isaac Genocide. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode of Based on True Events. If you enjoyed these narrations and would like your story to be featured in this series, please send in your written experience to unit522stories@outlook.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, I'm your Uncle Unit, and as always, never forget